Welcome. This is Human Path to Sovereignty, and I am Ceres. I believe the path to sovereignty is not running away from the ego, but deeply embracing our humanness as well as embracing the humanness of others. My intention with this channel is to be a bit different than other personal growth channels. I don't want to create content just to create content. I'm going to create content that's different, that's not out there. And all of it, I promise, will be rooted in sovereignty. So if you're resonating, please subscribe. This is actually my second video, and it feels really special because I am coming out of the closet as being autistic. So in this video, I'm going to speak about how this shows up for me. I'm actually going to show you a little video, how it's related to my purpose, and also the thing that has surprised me the most, because it has been a really surprising journey for me. So I actually went to a movie last week, It Ends With Us, a movie about domestic violence, because I was curious how it was going to be portrayed. And I thought, you know what, maybe I could say some insightful things and create a video about it. But instead, I'm just sitting in the movie theater. All I can think about is how my soul wants to create this video talking about being autistic and what that's like for me. So here we are. My name is Ceres and I am autistic. I hadn't planned on making this video right now or even this soon because honestly, I'm still learning what this means for me. But 7 months ago, I learned that I'm autistic. And when I learned this, I was like, okay, this makes sense. And then, I told people in my life and they were like, yeah, this makes sense. And then it's interesting because if I told people that are in my life but don't know me as well, then it wasn't as obvious to them as it was to the people that are close to me. But I didn't really know what the impact that label would have on my life. I didn't really know what that meant for me. So some crazy shit has happened in this last year, right? Some multidimensional telenovela shit. And although I'm not ready to share all of that publicly yet, I will in my book. It's really juicy. You can sign up for it to be the first to know when it comes out. And I can assure you there is nothing out there quite like it. So all of this craziness that's been my life in the last, let's say, year and a half even, it's all been connected to this book. It's all been experiences that I was meant to have, created to part of my purpose, my mission for me to write about. And what is that? This is to teach my perspective and understanding about sovereignty, how to cultivate and maintain sovereign relationships, how to create sovereign community, and also how to clean up the lack of sovereignty in spiritual communities. So my book highlights various, very nuanced ways that spiritual and personal growth communities lack sovereignty. So this was a mission that I had committed to, I had chose before I was born. And then now I was given the opportunity to step on the path or not step on the path. I still had to choose it. Because just as we have a mission that we chose before birth, we still have an opportunity to choose it in this life. And this was the time to fulfill the mission. So here I am. This is what I'm doing. I've created this YouTube channel and I'm writing this book or books to fulfill this sacred contract that I have with God. So in the midst of this really crazy year, I learned that I was autistic. In the months following, I didn't really know what to do with it, right? I was still me, living in the world. But it wasn't until the last month that I really dropped into something deeper. So even though I have been on an intentional growth path for over 16 years, nothing has compared to the growth I've experienced in the last year. So probably, I don't even know, I'm guessing like 20 times, could be even more than that in 1 year than I've experienced in the 15 years before that. And if you asked other people about me, they wouldn't say that I was slacking or like a casual personal growth explorer, but I was doing it from a place rooted in sovereignty, and that was the big difference. I'm going to talk about all that in the book too. So, because I want other people to understand the difference. So I've unraveled and integrated and sometimes intensely resisted this path forward. I have wanted to give up so many times because there's times where I just went past my human limit. I'm like, oh wait, I can't do that. I do have limits. I am a human. But it was all necessary for me to fulfill this sacred contract that I have with the divine. So I started experiencing stimming behaviors in January. If you don't know what stimming is, it's like repetitive movement or sound, like hand flapping, rocking back and forth, like spinning, head banging, finger tapping, pacing, eye rolling, eye moving, my favorites, leg bouncing, nail picking, and sounds like humming, clicking, snapping, repetitive sighing, and grunting, whistling, and just various other types of repetitive vocalizations. So people stim to self-soothe, for sensory regulation, and then sometimes just to express excitement. So for me, my most favorite, most natural way to stim that I know of right now is to move my eyes rapidly in certain patterns and roll them a bit. And also kind of my head naturally flows with it in all sorts of directions. So I'm not actually looking at anything or focused on anything. It looks like I am, but my eyes are just following a pattern in a grid, and it's very soothing, and it really helps me process. And sometimes I can even stim with my whole body where it jerks around and my eyes are moving around and rolling around, and it's freaking awesome, you guys. It would be alarming if somebody came into the room and I was doing that, but it is awesome. I love stimming, and I asked my spirit guides recently why my stimming traits have come back now after all these years, and they said it's because I'm becoming more of my true self. I'm becoming more of who I really am, and I've done some really deep healing, and now this part of me is able to express itself. And maybe, in the last 6 years, it's become clear to me that the way that I see the world or take in the world is unique. Because I think I had already done enough healing where I was starting to connect to this aspect of myself, where I was started to see the world more through obvious patterns, and I take in a lot of input about humans and that other people don't or maybe can't. And sometimes that's confusing to me because I think things are obvious, and I realize that they're not obvious to everyone. And every single person has their unique perspective on the world. And this is mine. So I often tell my friends, or I have in the last 6 years, is that I add things to my database. So I collect experiences, human experiences and patterns. I put it in my database. Sometimes I'll get working theories going, and I'll put that in the database, and I can remember these situations or moments or exactly what was said so clearly, right? So I might put some things in the working theory, and then I'll add some more, and then I'll be like, oh, interesting, there's something here. It's fascinating. To me, it's fascinating. So as I said, my sacred contract is about sovereignty, and my autism shows me a grid, and around having to do with human behavior. Probably why it's easy for people when their autism is focused on humans that they can be overlooked at being autistic. But it's like a grid, and I can feel energy leaks. I can track so many different systems that I've taken in, and language. Oh my God, I can tell so much about language. So if I can hear somebody speak for 5 minutes, and I can specifically point out so many things. I can give you a detailed report of just 5 minutes. And it's interesting because I can see the way people are leaking energy. This is just a really common way that because we live in a world that really lacks sovereignty. So I can perceive this in various ways, and it's not about judging. It's just that this is just the things that I track when I take in the world. And believe me, I have done so much integration of things, and continue to integrate ways that I'm leaking energy in my own sovereignty, tightening things up. So because I've accessed so much growth this last year, I've accessed a deeper love and compassion for myself and for all humans, because, being human is not easy. I say that a lot. But I did say something about systems, that I've learned a lot of different types of systems or categorizations over the last 6 years. And then I put that now as a filter of how I take in the world. So then I'll see something, oh, that stands out to me. Does that fit what that feels like this? I wonder if this is this. And again, this is how I start to create working theories. So I didn't realize that I just catch on to systems so quickly, and I can hold on to many different types of systems based on human behavior at once and make connections even within the different systems. So I have a lot going on at once, which is overwhelming. And when I stim, it's like all the intensity of what has happened or happening can be digested. So it's a way of like processing the input and emotions and, downloads. So one thing about late diagnosed autistic adults is like they just kind of learn like, oh, you've just normalized being overwhelmed by the world. It's just been your normal is to be overwhelmed. And sure, I've had growth and I became more grounded and there's things that were supportive, but I was still not completely understanding my needs. And understanding our needs is such an important part of building a solid foundation for sovereignty in our life. So the past month, I've softened my resistance enough to go even deeper, and I've just found this well of emotions because I have not really known how to take care of myself. Not really. And that has impacted me. It's impacted every area of my life. So I felt a lot of grief for that. It's like a lot of grief. And this is also like one of the coolest things about me, and I've not embraced it. So there's grief with that of just like, oh, there's this part of me that's just been repressed. And I realize, there's a couple, but there's one relationship in particular that I think my autistic behavior has really created some friction. And I think if this person knew that I was autistic and I knew, we could have had a shared reality to have a more sovereign relationship. So I feel grief with that, just like not having that missing information. I'm a sensitive person, and I've also have a massive fear of being an inconvenience for others, which those two things are really hard to go together. So I've had to integrate, more of this fear in the last couple of years because this was like a really big one for me. Like if I share a couple needs or sensitivities with someone, but then I don't want to burden them with too many things, and I don't want to be an inconvenience. I've always felt safer putting other people's needs before my own. And my spirit guides have just been beating me over the head with the fact that I need to be more comfortable with receiving to just balance this out, because I've just spent too much time compromising myself. And autistic people still find ways to stim, even if they aren't obviously stimming. So I have found ways to integrate and process, whether that's just through movements, small movements of my body, but also dancing, singing. Been doing a lot of singing lately, daily, and meditating. I've been meditating for 16 years, and I just started doing Osho's dynamic meditation a few times a week as well. And 3 years ago, I just heard, get outside. I was just guided to go outside and start dancing as a way of just processing. And now it's just part of a daily practice. I go out on the beach at night, or I've been starting to go in the morning, and I just do 15 minutes to an hour with my headphones, and I'm just dancing, and it's super liberating. And again, it helps me digest. But I'm learning that I really have to kind of just learn to ride my natural autistic rhythms of the day, and learn to have different points of allowing myself to digest things, so then I can be in flow. Because if I'm not doing that, then things can kind of get sticky and I'm not really as in flow, because that's a big focus of what I'm up to right now. So one reason why I'm sad, this is something that came up for me last month, is that I can't stim like I want to every day. I'm still too conditioned to access it on a daily basis. I can access it more, but it's not like a natural part of my life, my day-to-day yet. It's like if people were to see me on the street, they'd probably be a little alarmed, and I get it. They'd stop and stare. And, I don't need to do it publicly. I just want to be me, and I want to get the support that I need in moments of my life. And I want to do it, and I don't want to mask anymore. And if I could push a button, I would, of course, but that's not how personal growth works. It is really the unconscious parts of ourselves that hold on to things the absolute tightest. So there are parts of me that are still wanting to look cool and be accepted by society, understandably. I trust that I can stim naturally each and every day, someday, as I continue to unravel these parts of myself. And I would love for you to trust me too. Since what's important for me about having this channel and talking about sovereignty is also having a sovereign relationship with the people that watch my videos. So I'm not asking for advice, but wanting sovereign connection for you to witness and really allow yourself to be impacted in whatever way impacts you. And that's also how we naturally slip more deeply into sovereignty. Just allowing ourselves to be present with ourselves and others. So I was actually watching Love on the Spectrum on Netflix when I was told that I was autistic, which I highly recommend that series. I was binging it, and then I was told I was autistic. I was like, okay, all right. It was no accident that I was attracted to the series at the time. I feel like the shows or movies that I consume are always connected to breadcrumbs of life and, just healing and evolution. But it's really interesting on the show, whenever they ask the autistic people about being autistic, they all respond the same way that I can remember, is that they like being autistic and it's what makes them unique. And I think that's surprising for neurotypical people. And I feel the same way. I'm like, I wish I knew I was autistic from the beginning. I love this part of me. I've just fallen more in love with me. And also when I'm looking at the content online, because once you start clicking on things, right, you get more of that. There's the content from people that have autism. And they're creating content to support stimming. There's products around stimming. They're creating content for you to understand how the differences and just get your needs met. And then there's the content that's like how to stop stimming, how to reduce stimming. And that content is made from neurotypical people. So it's like the neurodivergence are celebrating their neurodivergence, and then the neurotypicals are like, hey, could you just stop that? Because it's like, I don't really get it. And but it's funny because I imagine also if you have a kid that is stimming, if you have a parent that is not meeting you and seeing you and giving you space for sovereignty, I imagine that kid would need to stim a lot more. So that's interesting. So here's the thing that I immediately connected when I learned that I was autistic is that the neurotypical way of communicating, connecting lacks sovereignty. It's super codependent. It makes sense to me. I had a really intense spiritual experience at the beginning of the year where I could see that every part of my design was created for me to talk about sovereignty and write these books about sovereignty. This is what I was designed to do. And I, like I said, I could fulfill it or not, but this is what I was designed for. I'm going to create a separate video about that because there's a lot there. But so if I'm designed for this, it makes sense that I would be neurodivergent because the neurotypical way lacks sovereignty and the neurodivergent way can see perspectives, has perspectives that the neurotypical way doesn't. So it makes sense to me. And I never anticipated that embracing and learning about my autism would be this profound journey of self-love, because I absolutely love this part of myself. Liberation and grief. And if anyone does see me doing the stimming, it's okay if you feel uncomfortable. And it's okay if you look away. I want you to look away if that's what you want to do. But just know that I'm celebrating every time I can do it. And if I'm doing it in public, then you know that that's also showing a lot of growth. So I celebrate publicly with you that I've gotten this far. I'm truly grateful to feel the liberation that I felt and to know this part of me, because I could have gone my whole life not knowing this or expressing this and really nurturing myself. And I know that I'm not alone in this, right? There are others who, like me, have received this late autism diagnosis and have their own unique way of moving through the world. I know there's some people that have a similar way of taking in the world that are autistic, and I know it's challenging. And I also know that there's a lot of y'all out there that don't know you're autistic yet. So last week when I went to the movies, I was just realized I can't go to the movies because I'm autistic. The way that I'm autistic, it's hard. It's really hard for me. Like, I like the idea. So I always find my way back every couple of years. But the truth is, it wrecks my system. It's too loud. The screen is too big. My nervous system is like amped up the entire time I'm there. I'm not even talking about like a packed movie theater, because when I share this with people, they're like, oh, I usually go and there wasn't many people. There was like 10 people, right? So I'm in this theater and I'm crying because I finally know and love this part of me. I'm crying because I know how to nurture myself better, and I'm more okay with my needs and being sensitive. And I'm crying because of the grief and the sadness, and I'm crying because maybe this is probably the last time I'm going to go to the movies in a theater. So ultimately, I am blessed to be autistic and blessed to be on this path that is taking me to the depths that I would never come to on my own. And I would have never done the healing that I have done if I weren't preparing for this. So thank you for being with me in this. And, if you're vibing or curious to see more, please like, subscribe, say what's up, share with a few friends to help promote my channel. Thank you to all my subscribers. And if you want to be one of the first to know when my book comes out, you can sign up for that and schedule a call with me if you really want some clarity on how to access your sovereignty and your unique gifts. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.